All right, so this morning I was sitting outside of my office. It was still cold, and I was thinking about that question that I get all the time from my boss, who happens to be a boomer, right? Ex-military boomer, to to add even more spice to this. And yesterday he kept asking me, it's like, why did Gen Z put in so little effort into this project? And when I asked Gen Z that this morning, he just looked at me like, I don't understand. I did the thing. And I'm like, you did do the thing. But you did the thing like not even 25% of what you were supposed to do. But again, adaptability and communication for Gen Z is something that's going to hurt them for their entire careers. If I ask you to do something and I don't give you a step by step process on how you're supposed to accomplish this, then it's assumed that by doing the bare minimum, that you accomplished it in your own mind. And you can't hold that against people who are making sub $20 an hour. These aren't great thinkers. If you want people who are going to show up, be able to do the job with little to no instruction, you're going to have to pay for that experience. And what corporations want is they want to hire that guy, but they want him to be desperate enough so that he'll work and be um what's the word I want here? Be overqualified in the position like I am. And so I run an entire office pretty much by myself, and that's what they want. And that's what the auditors are doing right now across the entire corporation, is that they're auditing every single person that works here and seeing who's not doing enough. And so by documenting what people are doing, or in a way, what people aren't doing, because there's been a return to office mandate that's been put into uh, the very pain of a lot of people who have been remote for since the pandemic, right? People who don't want to go into the office. But management wants to see people working hard. Management loves taking advantage of people with a lot of experience, a lot of fear. That's how I live my life in the workplace. And it's a constant fear that tomorrow you're not going to have a job. And the reality is, I don't know how I still have a job. I've been putting forth less and less effort. Actually, what I've been doing is putting forth the effort that I'm getting paid for, hourly wise, right? I'm only doing the minimal amount of hours. I don't do anything else, and it's beginning to show. I have 30 days worth of back emails that this wouldn't have happened to Millennial Steam from a few months ago. Every day I made an effort to make certain that I got all of my work done for no good reason but fear. And since I lost that fear, I show up to work and I just don't care. And that mentality is what happens to people that are completely burnt out. You act your wage. My job doesn't pay a living wage. My job is not a comfortable place to work. And as I had one of the people that sits on the board today, she was texting me on my private phone, say some pretty nasty things about the corporation, things that she was so questionable about, that she was sending me audio messages on my phone rather than going through any company email or messaging service. She didn't want the company to know how she really feels about the executive class. And there's one particular executive that rubs her the wrong way, no pun intended. But she's made it clear in the past that this person is not a competent person and that she feels like there needs to be change. And her spicy words today, like Gen Z was listening to me, to her talking on the phone. I was like, he's like, is that really how people feel? It's like she sits in those meetings behind closed doors with shareholders. She knows what she's talking about. She told me the way those people feel about my area about 6 months ago, and it wasn't good. They didn't have the good feelings for the people that work in this area. And I was just like, are you sure? And she's like, yep, straight out of the the horse's mouth. And I was just like, oh wow, I had no idea that the top thought so little of the bottom. But again, as I made my video earlier, they're expecting to hire Gen Z at a bargain rate, right? They want to hire Gen Z at minimum wage. And then they want to start exploiting the crap out of them, just like they do with everyone else. But it's hard to exploit people that aren't exploitable because they don't have the, I'm not going to say they don't have the education, but as I was thinking about this just yesterday, education has become a cover charge to get into any job. You may not need your education, but you have to pay the fee in order to be able to be considered. Because if you don't pay that fee, then they're not even going to look at you because they want you to pay that cover charge, which is whatever money you spent on college, the 40, 100 plus thousands of dollars worth of student loan debt, just to be able to come in and take a job that doesn't pay your bills. And the corporations love that. The American worker right now is probably at the lowest level they've been in a very long time. I'm going to say at least the last 40 years. The buying power of the average wagee is not good. And Gen Z's well aware of what these paychecks can afford them in life. And these paychecks are paying for you to live at home, work really hard, only to come into work to find out that they've decided that they're going to find someone else. And that's the great part about our society, is that the wage slaves are aware that acting your wage right now isn't something corporate America wants to pay for. They want you to act your wage, but they think that they're paying you 10 times more for the effort that they want. And so when people show up and they put forth minimum wage effort, minimum wage engagement, minimum wage loyalty, minimum wage, everything about the job to this current generation, this current young generation of workers doesn't mean anything. Life work balance doesn't exist for older generations. You work and you work and you work and you get nothing out of it. In fact, this morning I was watching a video of a woman who said that she's been working for 16 years and she owns nothing. And I can attest to that. What do I have after spending my entire adult life working? I don't own a home. I don't have a relationship. I don't have a nice car. I don't have any savings. And I have no career. That's how grateful I am to these employers right now. I have no future because of the way that they feel about workers. They don't want to invest in workers. In fact, yesterday I was reading this really rosy article. No, actually, I was reading it this morning because I was waiting for the people to finish up fixing the building where I'm at. And I was sitting there and I was looking at this article. It was published in Fortune, and it was about the company Handshake. Handshake is a company that helps you find employers after you graduate from college. And they were talking about, you can't go into this job economy as a new grad and have negative thoughts about what's going to happen to you, whether or not you're going to even be able to get a job. But they were talking about how these companies are wanting to invest in workers, and I'm like, this is straight up propaganda. Handshake was telling fresh new college students, get exploited. It's okay. And I was just like looking around and looking at the people that were moving the stuff around in the office and thinking these guys never had a chance. You look at how rough they look. They look like dock workers. They're all worn down from years of probably doing this type of work, which is hard work. Lifting heavy objects all day and loading them into a truck is probably not the best thing that you're going to do for yourself in your life. But acting your wage challenges the myth that overworking guarantees success, because it doesn't. I am definitely overqualified to do my current job. And for a long time, I just kept putting my head down and thinking, you know what, this is the best that I can do. And it is the best that I can do. Even though I'm terribly overqualified for my job and I don't like a lot of what I have to do on the average day, I don't even talk to anyone in my department anymore. On average, the only person I talk to is Gen Zero and his boss, which is, I guess, not boss. I guess the person who signs his time card but has never met him has decided that he's just going to go all in on Gen Z. And I'm like, you know what happened to the last guy that did this? He got fired. You know what happened to the last five guys that did this? They all got fired because Gen Z is going to make it seem like you're an incompetent manager because you have to do everything for this generation. There's so much hand holding for Gen Z, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. If I have five senior managers who all sign Gen Z's time card and all of them got fired, then something must have gone horribly wrong because guess who's still here? And that's to the bane of the management above me, who is under a lot of pressure to perform in a job where they haven't been able to perform. And that means that they know that someone's looking at what's been going on. When you lose five senior managers in a row, every year they've lost this position. Not because they wanted to, but because the person was being asked to do so many other things that it was impossible for them to do their job. And I will say there was some incompetence. There was people who just didn't want to do that job. And it's not that they didn't want to do their job, it was so many add ins to the job. Like my job, for instance, this past weekend, the only reason that I was there was literally because there was no one else to do this job. Everyone that works in this part of the country that could have been doing this job by far better than I am at doing this job because I don't do this job. I don't understand how I end up getting stuck moving offices when it's not part of my job at all. But yet there I am as the last guy to be moving corporate office buildings from one site to another, to another, to another. This has been, I think, my sixth or seventh move, large move of 20 plus people. I mean, the last couple times that I've moved, it's been really, really stressful because there's no one for me to ask. And this is something that I've tried to explain to Gen Z this morning when he kept saying to me, it's like, I don't understand, why is my effort not being seen as the correct amount of effort? Because he's one of those people that does act to their wage, right? He's a minimum wage worker and for all intents and purposes, but they want him to perform like a person who makes what I make, a person with the experience of working in a job in the same field for your whole life. And he just doesn't have it. Why? Because he's worked in jobs that he understands are what he has the ability to do. It's not an amazing coincidence that he's worked in fast food his whole life. The aptitude for doing more, how do I put this? Not more strenuous, but more challenging work, right? Where you're having to deal with complicated problems every single day. There is no solution. Your boss tells you you're going to do plan A, but that's it. Like this afternoon, my boss messaged me and it's like, I need this technology at this site, and that's it. There were no other instructions. If I were to hand that task over to Gen Z, he would just look at me like, well, I need to know how to do that. And this is a problem with this generation is that you need either they don't want to do it or they just don't have what it takes in order to figure out how to do more complicated tasks. They enjoy the simple tasks, and when they get paid for doing very simple tasks, they don't feel like the compensation is enough. Well, corporations build $1 billion, small companies will build $1 million businesses off the backs of people who are going to have incredible amounts of turnover for the same position throughout the entire year. And this is easy for me to say because the highest turnover at my evil corp right now is the salespeople. Day in and day out, they turn over. Why? It's a hard, stressful job that requires you to meet certain quotas. And right now, with the way that the economy is, there's not a whole lot of people falling victim to, how do I put this? To your to things that are obviously not on the level. Like if I were a university right now and my job was to find students to attend my university, and you find out that all of their friends are unemployed after going to your university, how are you going to feel about university education? And remember this, I just said this a few minutes ago. Universities have become a cover charge to get into corporate America. But once you even get into corporate America, if you don't have the 5 to 10 years of experience to get an entry level job in something that's not delivering pizzas, then you're kind of screwed. Everything about what I'm trying to say right now is that you're screwed. We're all screwed. In fact, I was watching one of John's videos this morning, and he was saying the same thing. It's like if you lose your job right now and you can't round up another job that pays you, I would say 60 to 75,000 to me is entry level wages because of the buying power of the dollar. You're going to fall down. You're going to fall victim to losing your home, your car, and everything else in your life. Because these jobs, these higher paying jobs, are much harder to get than the entry level jobs. And many young people don't understand that when you come into work and you believe in these things of like act your wage, that your employer is going to look at you and think, well, if this is all that you're going to do, then they don't want you there. Like that interview question that you get asked all of the time. I don't think I've ever had a job interview my entire adult life where they didn't ask me why I why do you want to work here? And the first thing that you want to do right in the job interview is be honest. Never be honest in any job interview that you ever go to, or else you're not going to get a job. And I fell victim to this myself when I got out of college. I kept going to interview after interview, and whenever they asked me that other question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I answered it honestly, returning back to the university. If you don't tell them in that job interview that you're going to be 100% loyal to the corporation, they're going to see that as a reason not to hire you. And it's a crappy one because you're just being honest with them, but at the same time, they don't care. They want workers who are desperate enough to take their low wages and who are overqualified for those positions. And so they don't feel any guilt or remorse for paying you a wage that you can't live off. They know what living wages look like because most of them earn them. The people who are going to be in those positions to hire people, chances are they're not hurting for cash as bad as the person that they're hiring for minimum wage, whom they want to have a very positive attitude, a gung ho attitude towards the work world, which doesn't last very long. In fact, it took my Gen Z a few weeks to realize that he was in a job that had no career and there was no possibility of advancement in any way. He can't be trusted to do anything. Like the amounts of times that I've had to just say to him, it's like, "What are you doing?" And they just look at you like, "Well, I'm working." And it's like, "Well, that's not what you're supposed to be doing." And again, you can't blame them because they don't have the experience to be making more money. They have the experience in order to get paid for what they're doing. And once you start acting your wages, it's when you tell your employer, it's like, I'm here, you pay me nothing, and therefore I can't own anything. And there's no possibility that this job's going to turn around. And then you wonder why your employees' attitude towards work sours so quickly. That's when they realize that I'm going to be here being exploited or I'm going to be across the street being exploited. Is a person that doesn't bring anything to the workplace, you kind of just like, I don't know. Um, for me, I have the double edged sword in which I feel bad for Gen Z because they don't get paid anything. But at the same time, when Gen Z doesn't perform his work duties, they ask me why not. And I can't tell my boss. It's like, you don't pay him anything. And every time you hire someone in that pay bracket, the $15 to $20 pay bracket, you're not paying for talent. You're paying for the bottom of the barrel of workers, of desperation workers, and then you get mad when they show up and they act like desperation workers. People that have other things on their minds besides work. They have survival on their minds, like I do every day. When I come to work, I'm not engaged with work. I'm engaged with figuring out what I'm going to do in order to stretch my paycheck to my next pay period. Because unfortunately, when you're not willing to pay people enough money for them to live off, they become preoccupied with survival. And that's never good for a corporation if all your employees are in survival mode. And I saw this for years when I worked at Walmart, is that everyone there had the look on their face like, what am I going to do? I'm working here, but I can't afford to work here. And this outdated notion of job loyalty that management wants you to have is nowhere to be found anywhere in that business.